Rotterdam is a delta city and located in the delta of the rivers Rhine and Meuse. Via the Nieuwe Waterweg, the city has open links to the sea and is influenced by the tide. The city is protected by a primary flood defense system consisting of dunes along the coast and dikes along the rivers. In addition, there are flexible barriers, like the Maasland storm surge barrier, that can be closed when storm tides are expected. Much of Rotterdam, including the main port, lies in outer dike areas. The elevation of the quaysides varies from a little less than 3 meters above sea level in the city to 5.5 meters into Tweede Maasvlakte, next to the sea. About 40,000 people are living in the outer dikes areas of Rotterdam.
Rotterdam is a delta city located between the North Sea and the large rivers that come from the east. So the city always has been vulnerable for high water situations, whether from storm surges from sea or high river discharges from the back. So Rotterdam has had a lot to deal with high water situations. For example, the 1953 flood that also struck Rotterdam for a bit. This area is not protected by a flood defense system, so it has been raised, but it still has to deal with temporary floodings due to seasonal high water or storm surges at sea. Last 100 years the sea level already rose with about 17 centimeters. Due to climate change this might also accelerate in the future, but we still don't know how much it will be. It might range between 20 centimeters, some scientists say, but also it could be like 2 meters. So we have to deal with this huge uncertainty about changing flood levels in the future. Well, this is one of the primary flood defenses of Rotterdam that protects a large part of the city, and this area is the unembanked area, which is not protected by dikes. The unembanked area, however, has been raised, and it's also protected by the Maasland barrier at Hoek van Holland. And the Maasland barrier will close at a 3-meter storm surge level. This area might be affected by a small temporary flood. This area is protected by these large dikes. So this is one of the former port areas of Rotterdam that recently has been transformed. So this whole area is also not protected by flood defenses. This area is however elevated, so it runs a small risk of having a flood. It's about 1 to 10,000 a year. But due to sea level rise and climate change, we expect that this will increase in time to probably 1 to 1,000 a year. So then there's a temporary flood of about, let's say, half a meter deep. That will cause damages to housing, cars of course, but also the electricity network and urban assets or sanitation network will be affected. And this also might have a cascading effect to other parts of the city. For example, when electricity network falls out in the outer dike area, it might also affect other parts of the city. This is the Northern Island, which is one of the oldest residential waterfront areas of Rotterdam. This is also one of the low-lying areas. We had flooding last year, December, when floodwater enters almost the entries of the buildings in this area. The chances on this moment is 1 to 50 that floodwaters will enter the buildings, but this will increase when the climate is changing. So we expect when sea level is rising that this probability will become something like 1 to 10, 1 to every year. So then we have a real problem in this area. So the solutions are that first of all we need to improve the protective system in the long run. For example, the Maasland barrier, it functions well in this moment, but on the long term it needs to be replaced or improved. So secondly, we're trying to enhance the resilience of the flood-prone areas by using the urban development processes there. Many of these areas they need to renew, or they are transforming into residential areas. These are all beautiful opportunities to adapt to rising sea levels. So one of the other ways we are dealing with high water is the floating architecture, floating buildings, which is of course the best or the most resilient way to live in a flood-prone area. So one of the solutions that we help, which we train the people in Rotterdam who live in the flood-prone areas to adapt their own properties, for example, is to close off small openings in the facade of their buildings, which is actually the historical approach we have had here in Rotterdam. But also they should change their carpets, for example, on the ground floor, to use tiles instead of carpets or wood, to raise their electrical networks to higher levels to avoid a blackout. So there are many solutions that are available, but we should together learn and train people to use them again. So Rotterdam remains vulnerable, but with the right measures we can become a more resilient city in the future.